Hello, my name is Kevin Young, and today we'll be talking about anabolic androgenic steroids, or AAS. From this point forward, I will be referring to them as steroids. So, steroids were first synthetically synthesized in the 1930s, and since then, they've become a Schedule III drug, and that was done in the Anabolic Steroids Control Act of 1990. A little bit about the name. Anabolic means that it's going to build molecules from smaller units, or build muscles. This is in opposition to the word catabolic, which would be to break down molecules via an oxidation process that drives ATP synthesis, such as glycolysis or the citric acid cycle. The word androgenic means that it's going to come from a male sex hormone. This is one of the three types of sex hormone agonists, which the others would be estrogens or progestogens. And some other names for steroids would be juicing, gear, doping, or performance-enhancing drugs, or PEDs. So these are the therapeutic uses of steroids. Some now obsolete uses would be bone marrow stimulation for leukemia or kidney failure. Nowadays, we just use synthetic hormones that specifically target blood cell precursors. Another use that for them was growth stimulation, and now we just use synthetic human growth hormone. Some uses for them that are currently being used would be to stimulate muscle growth and appetite, to induce male puberty, to treat chronic wasting conditions such as cancer or AIDS, and to boost testosterone for men with low levels. Another possible use for steroids is male contraception. So that is done via testosterone enanthate. It reduces the male sperm count via a currently unknown mechanism. So, some health risks and side effects of using steroids. Some of the major health risks would be cancer, changes to the left ventricle of the heart. It thickens up and it can cause things such as an arrhythmia, it can cause high blood pressure, and then other changes could be changes in cholesterol level, liver damage, which mainly occurs with oral steroid use. You can get acne and immune system damage, and then males can have gynecomastia and testicular size reduction. Normally that testicular reduction goes away shortly after discontinuation of steroids. Some of the neurological effects of recreational use or non-medical use of steroids are aggression, violence, mania, and psychosis. And then there's also dependence and withdrawal symptoms can be shown. There's neurotoxicity, mood disorders. However, there's no evidence of the neurotoxicity or dependence in therapeutic dosages. Dosages used in medicine are usually much smaller than the dosages used for the non-medical uses such as muscle building and bodybuilding. So, steroid use in sports is somewhat controversial. For the most part, though, it's not controversial because it is not allowed in any professional sport that has a governing body. The one type of professional sport that allows steroid use is going to be bodybuilding or powerlifting. And even in those sports, it's the contestants that use steroids are kept separate from the contestants that do not use steroids. And what I mean by that is the leaderboards of them, the leaderboards for bodybuilding and powerlifting are both separated by natural and non-natural athletes. A few high-profile examples of steroid use in sports, like I just said, there's bodybuilding. Most professional bodybuilders of the past that you can think of did use steroids. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a big user of steroids, and in interviews he has said that even with the knowledge that he has today, he would still use steroids. Another big use is baseball's steroid era, um, when the likes of Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, they all used steroids, and they really brought the sport back to the front of America and actually saved the MLB. Another high-profile case was Lance Armstrong. He used performance-enhancing drugs and along with the rest of his team, and they also had some blood transfusion things, but basically they used performance-enhancing drugs in their cycling. And then more recently, as in this year, Manchester City made World Soccer news because they failed to disclose the whereabouts of their players to the English Football Association so that they could avoid steroid testing. So just some statistics and ways that steroids are used. The median age for steroid users is 25. Of course, all of these numbers are only available via people that admit to using steroids. The most common user of steroids is a middle-class heterosexual male, and these people are not competitive athletes. Although, like I said, it all comes down to whether or not the person admits to using steroids. So by saying that they're not competitive athletes, that is because that could be attributed to the fact that competitive athletes have consequences to admitting that they use steroids. However, steroid users in general do seem to do more research on the different steroids that they're going to use as opposed to other drugs of abuse and the users of those drugs. But there is almost a general consensus that there's a lack of trust in physicians on steroid use. So 58% of the respondents that did say that they took steroids also stated that they lacked trust in their physician. And 92% of those felt that the medical community was lacking knowledge in the non-medical use of steroids, and 99% of the respondents that use steroids felt that the public has an exaggerated view of those side effects. So the different ways that steroids can be used, they range from oral pills, injection, whether that be intravenous or intramuscular. There's topical creams, and there's skin patches. One way that the users will take these steroids is to cycle, stack, or pyramid them. So a cycle is basically where you take the steroids for a certain amount of time and then you stop taking them. And then stacking is taking the steroids with other drugs, and pyramiding is ramping up the amount of steroid taken at a time. So the pharmacology of most steroids is basically that they're fat-soluble hormones, so that they can go through the membrane and they actually bind to androgen receptors in the cytoplasm. So once they bind to the receptor, it either alters the gene expression in the cell or it just signals other changes inside the cell. Basically, steroids are going to increase muscle mass by increasing the production of proteins and also reducing the recovery times by blocking cortisol, which is an agent in catabolism of muscle. In the brain, to cause the neurological effects I was talking about, the steroids are actually indirect agonists at GABA receptors, and they form very low levels of neuroactive steroids. So a large amount of steroids being taken will only cause a small level of neuroactive steroid, and the effect, which causes these effects to be very delayed and they don't really show up until about 2 weeks of use. My name is Kevin Young. Thank you for your time.